Today will mark the anniversary of the death of the People's Princess, Diana, Princess of Wales, in a high-speed car crash in Paris. Her death sparked unprecedented scenes of grief and anger at the loss of a young, beautiful member of the royal family who used her position for the betterment of children and humanity.
And while her memory is commemorated, there are still a lot of questions, conspiracy theories. They just will not go away.
Our top story this hour, the Princess of Wales has been seriously injured in a car accident in Paris.
Sunday, August 31, 1997, 10 a.m. Eastern in Australia. First news of the tragedy unfolding in Paris unfolds on Australian television news.
This is 7 Nightly News.
It happened just after midnight, Paris time.
Princess Diana has died, Sky Television says.
She died at 4 a.m. after going into cardiac arrest.
This is a news flash from National 9 News.
The news out of Paris on the condition of Princess Diana is not good.
2 hours later, and confirmation that the People's Princess Diana is dead, killed in a car crash in a tunnel under the River Seine, along with her lover, billionaire playboy Dodi Fayez, and the drunken, drug-affected driver of her limousine, Henri Paul. Across Australia, people paused in disbelief, shocked at first, then anger at the paparazzi accused of hounding her to her death. Anger also when Buckingham Palace, already struggling with the separation and pending divorce of Charles and Diana, failed to react immediately to the loss of the princess. Charles broke the news of the tragedy to his sons, 12-year-old Harry and 15-year-old William, at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where the royals escaped to avoid the public pressure the children faced. Across Britain, a national upsurge of grief inspired thousands to pay their tribute to the royal, all called their own. 5 days later, on the eve of Diana's funeral, the Queen finally addressed the nation.
This week at Balmoral, we have all been trying to help William and Harry come to terms with the devastating loss that they and the rest of us have suffered. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her.
Saturday, September 6, 1997, 9:08 a.m. UK time. The bells toll to mark the departure of Diana's cortege on the journey from Kensington Palace to the Queen's Church, Westminster Abbey.
Called out to our country.
Millions lined every viewpoint along the route. Inside the Abbey, 2,000 invited guests, led by the royal family, mourned her passing. An estimated 2.5 billion people around the world watched on television.
And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind.
An hour and a half later, Diana, Princess of Wales, made her final journey home to Althorpe, the Spencer family estate, 120 kilometres northwest of London. There, a path lined with 36 oak trees, one for each year of her life, leads to her island grave, buried as Diana Lady Spencer at the wishes of her family.
Your legend ever will.
But Diana would not be allowed to go to her grave in peace. Within weeks, conspiracy theories surrounding the tragedy abounded. Theories of murder, assassination by British Special Forces on the orders of the Queen, a hit organised by Charles to allow him to remarry, her death ordered to hide an unwanted pregnancy, sabotaged seatbelts in a staged accident, a fatal injection as she lay injured after surviving the crash, murder to prevent her marrying a Muslim.
And she was pregnant, and this will be proved in the court case in France. She told me personally, this is why. They've been spying on them, listening to them. They know they're going to declare their engagement on the morning.
Despite findings by a French court and a British inquest, the tide of claims continued.
Police investigations on both sides of the channel completely dismissed persistent conspiracy theories that the couple were murdered by the state, a theory supported at the time by Mr Al-Fayed's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed.
In 2004, Scotland Yard set up an investigation team headed by Commissioner John Stevens to inquire into 175 conspiracy claims made by Dodi Fayed's father, who remains convinced of the murder of his son and Princess Diana. Decades later, it may still be possible that Diana eventually may be allowed to rest in peace.
Your legend ever will.
Terry Galloway, Sky News.
So hard to believe it was 22 years ago. For more, we're joined by royal expert Toby Miller from Loughborough University. Good morning to you, Toby. The death of Diana is certainly one of those moments in history where people still remember where they were when the news broke. Diana, she had so many wonderful qualities. Toby, what do you think made Diana so special?
I think you were right when you referred to her youth and beauty. These were very important things in the context of a royal family that was already getting, shall we say, doddery. The other thing that I think is very important is that she had a personal touch that was very special to the British public, but to many people in the Commonwealth and elsewhere. But also, she was prepared to do very political things. So her campaigns on behalf of people suffering from HIV and AIDS and her campaigns against landmines touched those who were victims and who were not exactly the sort of people that the royal house, the monarchy, wanted to talk about. Didn't want to talk negatively about a major British export of armaments, didn't want to talk at all about HIV/AIDS in those days.
A couple of decades on, the conspiracy theories weren't quiet. What are your thoughts on this?
We'll probably never know for sure, will we? Mohammed Al-Fayed, one of the world's wealthiest men and someone who has a real grudge against the British state because it's always refused him citizenship, spent a lot of time and money trying to prove these things. And inevitably, when someone special dies young, those things abound. We heard Elton John sing his rewritten version of Candle in the Wind, which was originally, of course, about Marilyn Monroe. It's however many, 57 years or so since she passed away, and those conspiracy theories haven't gone. There's no doubt that there were all sorts of elements of the royal household that had a thing against Diana because of the controversies that she laid bare to the public, particularly her husband's affair and her affairs, and that they may well have tried to discredit her in the eyes of the media and the public. But I doubt we'll ever know whether any of these conspiracy theories are justified.
And the failure of the Queen to react immediately to the tragedy has certainly been widely criticised. Is that criticism justified, do you think?
Oh, I think undoubtedly. Tony Blair had just become Prime Minister not long before, and his brilliant media touch and way with the British public, lost now, but at its high point in 1997, was brought to bear when he met with the Queen and supposedly more or less said to her, you have to come out and make a statement. You have to say something very positive about her legacy. And it's, I think, well known that relations between the Queen and her daughter-in-law had been frosty. But she waited too long, but the words she spoke, and we heard them in your excellent package earlier, were very moving. Remember that she had called 1992, the year of the breakup, the annus horribilis, the terrible year, when many things went wrong for the royal family. Their traditionally successful media management had failed. Pro-monarchy newspapers, that's most of the British news press, had basically abandoned their always positive coverage. Something needed to be done. She was slow, they were slow, but they realised what they needed to do, I suspect because Blair prodded them.
But we often mark cards just by what we think, what we see, crisis management and everything else that goes with it. I personally felt sorry for the Queen because she was those boys' grandmother, and some of those early comments that she made, let us have these boys and talk to them. And look, but moving on to the next question that I wanted to ask, look, if Diana was alive today, she'd be a grandmother. Her legacy, her remarkable legacy, and Prince Charles' remarkable legacy, are these two boys who have grown into men and have basically reshaped the whole royal feel.
I think that's right, because Prince Charles was meant to do that. He was thought of as somebody who would be special. He had gone to university, which people didn't normally do. Most of them have been homeschooled. He was meant to be young and dynamic, but now there he is, a slightly doddering and bizarre figure. And it's fallen to his sons to take on that mantle. And although they've done the things that all the royal men do, served in the military and then gone around the world doing good works, they've also done things in slightly different ways. So they've talked about, for example, their own psychological difficulties in dealing with the early loss of their mother. William is a major figure in association football, soccer, and has talked about sexuality questions and depression and trauma questions for football players. Of course, Harry has married an African-American woman, stepping outside the norms of the elite of white British culture in doing so. And she is a feminist and says that she is, and is prepared to talk about questions of racial and gender inequality in Britain and elsewhere. So this is a new generation. It's picking up on the social conscience that Diana showed and taking it far beyond the level that we've really seen from this royal house.
And Toby, Diana is buried as Lady Spencer rather than as a member of the House of Windsor. Why is that?
This was a major issue at the time of the separation, actually, prior to her death, what she would be called and where she would be allowed to live. And it's supposedly part of the Queen's critique of her that gets expressed in the loss of some of these privileges. And I don't think there's any doubt that these titles, which mean so much to monarchists, aristocrats, and those in that ruling elite, were used as weapons against her, and the same thing is done after her passing. It's tragic. You can regard it as trivial, but for those who are invested in such things, it's a slap in the face both during and after life.
Just wrapping it up, it is remarkable for all of us to think it was 22 years ago. But also, we look at this whole time almost unprecedented, because her whole life from 19 on was documented in such a way. It felt like for many people that they were related to Diana. They felt like her sister, her friend.
I think that's absolutely right. She was a bit like a soap opera star, and I don't mean that in a trivial or negative way. The difference between a movie star who seems to be unknowable and far beyond us and a soap opera star, or nowadays a reality TV star, is someone who could be like us, just better looking. And that's definitely what Diana was.
Thank you, Toby. Good to talk to you, and we'll catch up with you real soon.
A pleasure. All the best on this day.